Hello YouTube, this is Morgan Airspeed Prime here with my next Boruto anime review. This one's going to be for episode 279. So we continue this labyrinth arc, this game of death here, and we do get some more deaths with the loss of Bata and Fugo, as well as the promise of a one-on-one battle, fight, confrontation at the very least between Boruto and Kizaru to end the episode. So I actually really enjoyed this episode. I think they used the fact that basically all of the characters we have left we sort of care about to a certain degree, maybe outside of Fugo, and I think the way he was killed off made it kind of clear that he probably is the last of the characters who doesn't feel incredibly important. But everyone else, it feels like, okay, we're in a position now where I don't think we really want to lose any of these characters, and so every sudden surprise death does actually mean something here. So the game itself this time out was actually quite fun, very, very simple, but it worked for what they were trying to do here. So we've got 8 characters left. They're each given a number at random, and they need to finish this game, which is basically just walk through this sort of like rocky kind of deserty environment, get to the finish line, but you need to have numbers equaling at least 7 to get through. So obviously with numbers 1 to 8 involved, only a certain amount of people are getting through. So 2 people are through by default with 7 and 8, and then everyone else needs to kind of fight to get higher numbers, and that made for a good dynamic overall. So the reveals that we get here are that sort of Boruto quickly meets up with Shamo. Shamo has 8, Boruto has 6. We get a quick cutaway to Kizaru confirming he has 7, so he's already through. Rokuro has 1. Bata and Fugo have 2 and 3. I forget which one had which. And then Yatsume and Namua had the remaining numbers. So most of the episode was Boruto, Shamo, Yatsume, and Kizaru kind of like eventually kind of teaming up together and realizing that, okay, with the numbers we have a weird thing where like not all of us can get through. We definitely need to kind of find the other people and try and like effectively negotiate the best way to get as many people through as possible with the numbers, so numbers aren't kind of inefficiently like used and more people die than maybe have to die. Now, we see that Boruto and Namua are both very willing to give up their number as soon as possible. But over the course of the episode, Boruto makes it very clear that he is absolutely just willing to give up his numbers in nearly any situation, which I suppose should surprise us to a certain degree, but obviously we know who Boruto is. Of course he's going to do stuff like that. So the big thing that happens, obviously, is the death of Bata and Fugo. So before they die, they do actually kind of confront each other. The Bata finds out what's in the briefcase. She finds out it's not money. It is just, like we saw before, the family picture, and then what's revealed to be a bottle of poison. The story here is kind of a bit weird because it makes me kind of question a few things about, like, once again, why this selection of characters for this weird game? What's going on here? Is there a greater significance to what we learned about Fugo here? Or is that just his backstory, given that we're going to kill him off now? So the reveal with Fugo is that he is being blackmailed by another company. His company is basically near bankruptcy, and he's hoping to use the poison to sort of like take them out and stop the blackmailing from happening, sort of save his family type thing. Now, obviously, this leans a little bit for Bata into another rich person just trying to sort of protect themselves at the cost of everything else. They played like a high-risk game, sort of lost, and she's just trying to get money to basically protect her island, basically, now that we know her kind of more noble goals, even though she's trying to achieve it through kind of less than noble means. So big confrontation there, the reveal comes out, but right before they can properly see how that resolves itself, Fugo gets a kunai to the back and is killed, and then Bata is also taken out. And immediately you have to be like thinking, because of the recent Kizaru reveal, it's either Kizaru or Rokuro, because he just wants to kill everyone and he needs the numbers since he only has the 1. That's probably a very likely candidate. Kizaru is kind of weird because he has the 7, so he doesn't actually need to really participate in the game. But he eventually finds out he's basically been outed by Bata as like a traitor because he doesn't have his comms device, and he figures out that, oh, Bata is the only one who possibly could have gotten it. So there are two clear candidates for who could have done it. The eventual reveal is that Rokurou says he did it and kind of implies that to get everyone angry at him to fight him. But when Rokurou is defeated, he reveals that when I found them, they were already dead. I just took the numbers that were left behind, meaning Kizaru did it. So the character who didn't need the numbers was the one who actually took out 2 other competitors just to try and protect the idea that, I suppose to get the comms device back and to protect other people maybe knowing about him. But at this point, they do know about him. Hence the way the episode actually ends, which I thought was quite clever the way they did it, that they beat Rokurou, but then Boruto takes the other numbers and gives his to Rokurou. So Rokurou, who survives, is able to win, to go through basically with the score of 7. The other 2 numbers get given to Yatsume and Namua, because those numbers perfectly add up to 7, so they go through. Shamo goes through with his 8, and it leaves this really interesting situation where, with just a few minutes left in the test, there's a confrontation between Boruto, who has no number now, and Kizaru, who has the 7, to see who basically gets through. So this is the big confrontation of like Kizaru, who they trusted in the early stages of the exam, now experiments, not exam, is now the kind of big bad. And we have to remember that what was revealed in the previous episode is that he is a Kara outer. You almost forget that because the Sarada, Mitsuki, and Kawaki part of this episode was weird. Kawaki and Sarada just arrived to find Mitsuki covered in like explosive seals and tags, and then Kawaki just gets covered in them himself, but he fire jutsus his way out. And then they don't really say much other than like, oh, I guess other people are involved, and there's a little bit of a talk about how much do we know about Kara outers, and another mention of code. So it was just sort of like, I felt like the bare minimum in that scene to kind of move us along without having them get, I suppose, too close to the game, since we still have quite a few characters left, even though there's only one. Is it just one test left? I'm not sure if I remember that correctly, but that's going to be interesting. But yeah, so we lost 2, and then 1 will have to go away after the result of that, leaving 5. And yeah, I guess maybe there was 5 experiments. The last one is the last 5. That could work. So that's kind of interesting. The fight itself, I suppose, going back to it, Rokurou, of course, has the kind of transform his arms into kind of blade situation, which I kind of wonder what the deal is with that. Will they explain that jutsu? He also had an interesting kind of worm thing that he fired out, and it hit Namua's neck, and he said it was kind of like a puppetry type thing, but it seemed to just kind of ally Namua with Rokurou temporarily. He could fight against it, and he ultimately does. He is injured, but he makes it through despite saying that, like, oh, I'm going to die. So, I don't know. I feel like this episode probably removes any suspicion from Namua, in that he just seems to be trying to redeem himself from his life of crime from before. So that's quite interesting. Beyond that, I thought the fight was it was okay. They weren't trying to do anything particularly fancy here. Boruto uses a Vanishing Rasengan to kind of switch things up. Eventually, the fight kind of ends with an actual Rasengan. I did like that we at least had a little bit where Yatsume and Shamo were sort of holding back in the fight, and it was Shamo who was actually the one to be like, we got to get in there. Now, they don't end up doing all that much in the fight, but there was an interesting point where Yatsume just starts kind of tearing up, crying, watching what's happening with basically Boruto, Namua, and Rokurou, and like, you know, having this big emotional moment about like people fighting for their lives in this kind of death situation, which is very interesting because she, of the remaining cast, is pretty much, you'd have to say, like the most mysterious of the characters that we have left, because she's never given us her goal motivation beyond like she wants to change her hair color, which is a little bit odd. And now you have this kind of emotional moment, which maybe is getting into the idea of why she's here. Her actual motivation maybe relates to a situation where other people had to fight for their lives, and that's why seeing such a kind of crazy battle happen in front of her actually gets her emotional. But we definitely have to do something, I think, with her, because I think her like character design is really good, and I've liked in general how she's been kind of portrayed over the course of this. So I hope they kind of get over the finish line with her as a character and do something somewhat interesting with her. There was little bits and pieces when she was interacting mainly with Namua, where it kind of felt like, you know, she doesn't want to take the number, but she's also keeping an eye on where that number is. And there's been maybe little moments in previous episodes where she's kind of been like that as well, where, you know, she's going ahead because ultimately sort of like Boruto's optimism is sort of like bringing the rest of the group onwards. They're getting through it, even though they're losing people. And it kind of feels like if something bad happens, would she make the decision to play the game more in the way that it's kind of wanted to be played by like Rokuro? I don't really know what to make of that. Shamo is his kind of usual self, but he did show a moment of kind of bravery in all of this, so that was pretty good. Namwa is injured, but I don't really suspect him much anymore. Rokuro going forward is interesting because he's still this kind of criminal who basically led to so many other people dying earlier on in the test. But they, I think, wanted you to kind of view him as being somewhat kind of like honorable as a fighter in this episode, because he accepted his defeat and then actually gave them the information that was like, I didn't actually kill them. Kisuru did. And so he's through now, but also sort of injured. So is he going to work with them now going forward, or what? What's the idea with Rokuro? Again, we probably need to find out what exactly he did to be captured by the older ninja from the earlier episodes. And what exactly that is. It does still feel perhaps like Rokuro and maybe Namwa are the ones who maybe will be killed off next, and that leaves basically what Boruto's obviously going to make it through, but then Shamo, Yatsume, and Kisuru. Will Boruto? The thing here is that the arc would lead you to believe Boruto has to kill Kisuru, but obviously Kisuru is going to reveal that what is he involved with Oga? Is Oga a Kara thing, or is Kisuru here separately from what this actual game actually is? Again, those reveals I think will still need to come out. So does he somehow make it through as well? If he is working with the game, that could make him get through. But yeah, then it comes down to Shamo and Yatsume, because the thing is, like, we don't really know who's like guaranteed to make it out. Is it just the one person at the end, or will other people make it out as well? That's what I'm not really sure about. The preview seems to be suggesting, based on what we've seen, Shamo is going to, I think it was Shamo, that he's maybe going to kind of get to do something in the next episode. But you know, interesting stuff here. I think that's the big thing with this arc, is that it is actually fun to speculate about what way this is going to work, because this is a common thing you see in a variety of different shows, and it's always interesting. Which character do they do this in the kind of usual way? Do they purposefully go against those kind of tropes, or do something completely original? Because I think there are some interesting elements here in terms of like the origin of this, the fact that, you know, we do have Sarada and Co. trying to track them down. They don't seem close just yet, but it feels like we're going to kind of get there. And then from the preview, it seems like there are going to be two new kind of masked characters brought into play here. So we'll see what that is and all that stuff. So yeah, I think that's everything I want to say about this episode. So in the comments, let me know what your thoughts were on this one. Where do you stand with sort of like the remaining characters here? What way do you think they're going to go with it? What characters are going to make it out? Who's next on the chopping block? We don't really know. But that's been the video. Thanks for watching, and bye.